here all the time it has taken.
Okay. Okay, so we'll be starting. Hi guys, and good evening to everyone. My name is Sushant Srivastav, and I am a third year student at VIT Vellore, and I am also an Alpha Microsoft Student Learn Ambassador and a lead manager and a community builder at LGM. Apart from this, I also serve as the community head at SETS VIT projects. That is a technical chapter that represents the development of space, and I am also the part of other clubs and chapters at college. And I'm currently interning at Inside FPB as a web developer intern. And apart from all of the technical side, I'm also an astrophile and a tech enthusiast. So it's been a great and wonderful time to have all of you in the event today. And we look forward that you have something extra to learn from my side as well, and something that you can take away after the event. So let's start with the slide. So since today we are having a very open topic and a vast topic as well. So if you want to sum up JavaScript in an session, that won't be possible. So I'll be telling you on the points that we'll be covering up today. And starting off with the basics. So since most of the joinees are from first year, I believe it will be good if you can start from the basics and clear some of the basic doubts and how you can start with JavaScript. For example, whenever you listen about JavaScript, whenever you make a static page, for example, so whenever you're making a static page, you generally look into the HTML and CSS part, but you generally tend to skip the JavaScript part, or whenever you use a boilerplate for HTML5. So you generally see there is a script tag at the end of the HTML, but we do not generally use it because that is something that is not difficult, but it's something that you need to know about when you're starting from the basics. So, okay, I would like to ask few of the questions. So how many of you guys do not know web development at all? Can you guys raise your hand once? Like you do not know even HTML and CSS. Okay, so we have around 15 people. Okay. Okay, we have around 10 people. So it won't be difficult. I'll be explaining you the key points that you need to remember whenever you're talking about any website. And then when you're starting off JavaScript as well, we will talk about the basics itself so that you guys can cover up. And later on, as you know, we'll be making a small game that will be very easy to code. You'll be coding with me itself. We'll have an interactive session. And feel free to post any of your questions and doubts in the chat box, or in case you find any typo or error when I'm typing. So please forgive me for that. And you guys can always unmute and ask your query for that. Okay. 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 So starting off, yeah, you guys can raise your hand. Sorry, lower your hand. Thank you for supporting that. I'll be covering up a few of the questions that were asked in the registration form. So I'll just cover up that and then we'll be moving on. Apart from that, any questions and queries you have, you can just put it in the chat box. So yeah. So some of were wanting to know how we can start off with JavaScript. So we'll be talking about the basics one, so you'll be able to code at least a bit one. And basic integration is VS Code. So I'll be teaching you about some of the extension as well that you can use. I'll be teaching you some tricks that you can use in VS Code so that it will be easier for you to start your first code editor. And when you're talking about JavaScript, we'll have some shortcuts for HTML and CSS as well, and we'll be having some shortcuts for JavaScript as well. Yeah, we'll be covering up the basics and Okay, some of you also studied Java. I think you started from class 9 and 10. So even if you know basic of HTML as well, even HTML is very easy. So now, since you get the boilerplate, it will be very easier for you to understand that. So that won't be difficult. Okay, benefits, we'll be talking about that benefits as well. Okay, where you can use the learning. So whenever you see, I would say whenever you're applying for any intern role or a job role, generally, if you talk about any startup, first of all, they would like to publicize whatever they have. So generally, they go for a website. So whenever the term website comes in, JavaScript, HTML, and CSS are the basic need that we need. And to have a basic knowledge won't be difficult, but when you further grow, as I said, JavaScript is a big thing. So you learn more frameworks as well. You learn more libraries, but the basic syntax will always be important and necessary to understand how you can start for further moving on with JavaScript. Okay, also, yes, I have some resources as well in the end. I'll just let you know about that as well. So that wouldn't be an issue. Basic JavaScript. To which level? Okay, so someone asked up to which level we need to learn JavaScript. So to make a basic web page, even a portfolio site, you do not even know need to know JavaScript. Okay, so that is not very important for a basic static page. Maybe showing us your portfolio, so that won't be necessary. But further moving on, if you want to develop, for example, you want to use library. So you guys must have used YouTube. So whenever you use YouTube, YouTube is based off React JS. Okay, that is a library based off of JavaScript as well. So the way it is implemented, JavaScript is the core language that is used, and further on, React has its own node modules and its packages which you can further use and use the specifics of React. We won't be talking React as of today, but once you start with JS, you are good off with taking some React courses and just trying few of the free courses. Mostly you can go for materials on YouTube, so you can just start if you want to know some of the basics of React. Okay, also, okay, so projects. Someone asked projects. So one of the basic projects could be you can build a game. Generally, JavaScript is built for games. You can make a good website off of JavaScript using somewhat like uh, the features of JavaScript itself. For example, if you are using a form, JavaScript would also be a good thing that you're requiring for a form. But for a basic static display page, you don't need JavaScript. But after that, whenever you are talking about, you might need JavaScript later on. My audio is clear, right? I'm audible to everyone.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Okay, so let's move on. So this is the basic HTML. So whenever you see the homepage of any website, so the thing that you first see is the HTML part. So HTML part generally explain about the structure of the website. Then moving on to the other parts, let me just go to the other slide. So then we talk about CSS. So CSS means cascading style sheet. So whenever you talk about the layers and the layouts, the font size, the visual appearance of the website, it's generally dealt with CSS. And let me give you one example shot. For example, this is the login page. So whenever you use 3 HTML tags, for example, basic, so you can get this sort of template. Okay, so this is pretty basic. But for example, if you're using CSS in the same case, so you get this thing. So you can change the font size, you can add a picture, you can add border radius, you can add color to it, and you can add shadows. So that is all possible with CSS. Now coming on to JavaScript. So JavaScript was basically developed in 10 days by Netscape. If you are born around 2000, so you must remember Netscape was a good browser and a popular browser that time. So Brendan, I did develop a JavaScript, and that time it was not named JavaScript. It was mostly named Mocha, but that never went to production or any people using it. It was just developed. Later on, it was named as LiveScript. So LiveScript was another name that was given. And during that time, since Java was famous, so the name was adopted JavaScript, so that it also gained some bit of popularity because of JavaScript itself. And Microsoft so there is, yeah, so you must have heard JS script as well. It is not used in most of the cases, but there are some uses of JS script where which was developed by Microsoft itself by re-engineering JavaScript. But popularly, we generally use JavaScript itself. Okay, so when we're talking about uses of JavaScript, so let's move on to the uses, actual uses, and how you'll be using JavaScript more. So when we're talking about JavaScript, so since we are talking about speed, right? So why do you think JavaScript has a better speed? So for example, you must have used Stack Overflow. So Stack Overflow listed JavaScript as one of the fastest and the most popular language in 2020 as of date in top 5. So because JavaScript is an interpreted language like Python, so whenever you're writing a script, you do not need to wait for the compilation to complete like in Java or C++. Rather than you can use it in the client side and have a fast execution of code directly using your web browser. So how can we say simple? So the syntax that are used in JavaScript are pretty basic. So if you have a minute understanding about C language, so it is basically using same sort of codes, which is easier to learn, and then you can adapt and you can create dynamic content for your website. So what do you mean by interruptibility? So interruptibility can be easily understood on how you can use this JavaScript language and other languages that are available in the market. So for example, JavaScript works best with some other programming languages. And therefore, we can create numerous websites that are coded in other languages as well and use JavaScript content in it. So we can easily transfer some of the codes by understanding the basic syntax. So what do you mean by server load? So whenever you're talking about server side, right? So for example, when you're talking about website, so there is a client side, the thing that we are using, and there is a server side. So the server side deals with the thing that you see on the screen, and the client side see things that is loaded from the server. So if you're shifting all the load towards the client side, there won't be a server load that is created for data validation. For example, when you're buying off something from Amazon, so whenever you type a valid credit card number or debit card number on a website, so whenever you type that, you generally get an error when it's faulty, right? So that is something that can be dealt with inside the browser itself, and it does not need to go to the server and check the data validation and return back. So that decreases the server load actually. And whenever you're using a browser, then the browser takes all of the load and it updates the selected segment of the site. And interfaces. So when we're talking about interfaces, whenever you're dealing with things, drag and drop, animations, user interactivity of the website, those things can be dealt with JavaScript easily. Also, we are talking about less overload. So as I said, whenever the website and the web application are reducing the functions by using inbuilt function. For example, if I'm using a user type function, so user type functions are the some functions that I define myself. So those functions generally might take some of the overhead, so CPU overhead, and use it and decrease the performance of the overall system. But JavaScript has its own inbuilt functions, DOM manipulation. So I'll be talking about those topics as well. So you'll get a brief understanding about those things as well. So that won't be an issue. So moving on. So yeah, so this is a famous argument when you hear so Java and JavaScript. Is it same? Can we learn something else? Is it something similar? But I would like to say it's not even similar. Just the naming convention is similar, but there is nothing similar in the code execution and the way the code is written as well. So as I said, Java is a compiler language and JavaScript is a interpreted language. So the runtime happens is more dynamic than Java having its static runtime. So that is basic. Whenever you're running a Python code, so the line is checked one by one, line by line. That is interpreted language. So that works in a JavaScript. Also, whenever, for example, you're writing a C and C++ code. So whenever you're executing, so whatever code editor you're using, you just click on run, it first builds it, first compiles it, and then then it runs it. So that takes a bit of overhead, not much, not in the case of C and C++, but it is not that dynamic than JavaScript. So what is JavaScript? So whenever we're talking about JavaScript, so JavaScript is a programming language that it can be used in both client side and server side, and we can increase the overall interactivity of the website, where HTML and CSS help in the styling and the structure of website. JavaScript can be used to getting more engaging audience and how the user interacts with the system. Also, if you're talking about some of the other things, so what do you mean by client side? So you're talking about client side. What all things can you do? For example, there is a value. For example, you enter a data. For example, you are typing some addition data. So when you enter the data, the output that you get is something that is rendered. And there are other requests, like for example, when you're filling a form, that is a post request. So you're posting that request to the server, and it is getting stored in that server. Okay. So so there are other front-end frameworks. For example, there are both front-end and back-end framework for JavaScript. So front-end could be like React, Angular, and Vue, and back-end could be Node.js that we popularly know. So you can use Node.js to make your web application even better. So I'll be talking about more of the uses in the further slide. So for example, as I already said, JavaScript as increasing the interactivity of the overall site. It can also be used to make individual apps, independent apps that you do not need to even run on the browser directly. And also it is used in server-based applications and some of the game development. Okay, and there are more uses. So dynamic content. So since I said it is an interpreted language, we get dynamic content. Yes, someone has doubt. Yeah, you guys can ask your doubts if you have any. Aishwarya, do you have any doubts?
No, sir, by mistake, I can.
Oh, okay, no issue. Okay. In case you have any doubts, just type it in chat box. I'll look at it in a few moments. Okay, so where were we? Yeah, so also client side is a type, it can be used in client side technology. It is embedded in HTML page. It is interpreted in web browser. It is simple and flexible. And what do you mean by DOM? So DOM is document object model. So whenever you see any manipulations happening in any event, for example, you click a function, for example, you click a button on a website. So what happens after that? That generally deals with events and DOM manipulation. Yeah, so how, if you're talking about implementing JavaScript on a website, so there are three ways how you can implement it. So the first one is very easy, you'll understand the first one. Second one, I'll teach you how you can directly get an extra file. And third one, we generally do not use that function. So what is the first one? So whenever you see script, and script is the tag that is used in HTML, which is used to which has an external function that is called .js extension if you are using an external file. But if you are using an internal file, it's not generally pasted that way. So we just give the link of the source of the JavaScript file. Yeah. Also, yeah. So this is the first one. As I said, whenever you're using a normal HTML page. So this is the basic HTML page, right? So you see the script and script empty generally when you are creating any static HTML page. So there is the place where we actually add the JavaScript. So for example, we added alert. So whenever you load this page, you get an alert saying the JavaScript is working. So that is the first one. And the second one, yeah, this is another example. So documented write is an tag and or a syntax of JavaScript that you can use to display whatever content you want to display on that specific whole page. Okay, so for example, if I'm writing document.write, I get whole page overview of that text only. Nothing else will be displayed. And this is the other way. So if you're if you feel you are more concise and you want your HTML to be very small, you can go with this. You can create an external application, external file with a .js extension, and you can write all the codes and that is linked with the HTML that you make. So that is quite handy whenever you're talking about both the things coming hand to hand. And yeah, this one is the third one. So I'll also an example as well. So this is the third one. So when we're displaying this site, for example, the JavaScript is the link part. And since we are using href tag, we get the link and the name is JavaScript. So whenever we click, so after the click button is there. So whenever you click that button, you get the website. So that means that href is linked with this function of JavaScript. So when we're clicking that, you get to the thing. So, okay, so now we'll be moving on to the coding part. So we'll be discussing about coding. So how many of you have VS Code right now? Like I'll be telling you in a brief if you do not know how you can use it. Okay. Okay, many of you do not have that. Okay, I'll take a few minutes to say how we can install it. Let me open a browser. Okay. I'll open a sandbox. We'll be starting with basics as well. We'll be downloading two things. That will be VS Code and Git. So Git, I'll tell you a bit later. Let's first start with just VS Code. So let me share my screen. Can stop the presentation as of now. We'll be continuing later on. Yeah. This will be the code I will be executing. I'll be slowly exploring. So this is my sandbox. So everyone can follow these steps, and you can just ask if you cannot follow me. I'll just go to any web browser that you have. It's around 70 MB file. So once you go here, you go to downloads. You can just download any of your versions. You can click on download here, and it will start downloading. So everyone can just download it, and you guys can type yes once you have downloaded. Okay, so once you have downloaded and it's open, just type yes in the chat box. So we'll be continuing on the other things. Quickly, it will hardly take 5 or 10 minutes. You just download it. I'll wait for a moment.
We don't have chat box option actually.
Oh, okay. So what you can do is you guys can give a thumbs up. I think you guys can react. So you just give a thumbs up. I'll know. So on the thing, you get a thumbs up button. So you just give a thumbs up. Yeah. So my VS Code just got downloaded. I will. Yeah. So I downloaded the user installer. So there are two type of installer in case you are wondering. So one is user installer, one is system installer. So user installer means it will only work in that user account, and system installer means it will be working in all the accounts that you have. For example, the user accounts that you have once you log in. So I'll just install it. I'll just add this. Okay, how many of are remaining to download now? So this is my interface. I'll just choose it, dark theme. And I'll just make a folder, for example, when we are coding. So let me make a folder. I'll right click, I'll open with code directly so I can get the same folder here. I'll make the trust part here and I'll just open it. Did everyone follow this?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You're able to download, right? Anyone who is not able to download?
Yeah. It's done.
So let me start with very basic example of how we'll be talking about JavaScript. So first we'll be talking about basic syntax. So if you have heard that JavaScript is a programming language, so there will be a basic syntax when you are writing any code, any piece of code. So I'll just open up a prepared code editor. So I'll just make a folder here, for example. Let me use here on itself. So I'll make a so I'll just rename here. So as you guys can see the code. If you cannot follow this code, you can just look into it. Later on, I might provide you the code, but try to code it with me also, okay? So that you're not missing anything in between. Is this screen visible to everyone? Can you see the code?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start. I mean, so since we are starting, so let me give you example of this one. There will be basic code first. So you can download some of the extensions that I'll tell you. That will be you will be using. So I'll just go to my. You can read the code, right? This one.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So you can download some of the things. I'll tell you a few of them. So you can download emit. So emit gives you syntax of shortcuts, JS snippets, and HTML snippets. You can download ES6 or ES7. You can download one called HTML boilerplate and HTML snippets. You can download ES6. You can download. Since we don't have enough time, so I'll be coding it with the shortcuts, so that will be easier for you to follow. So that will be pretty simple for you guys to follow. So this one, okay. So this is the one, and so that was one. I'll be writing it here. Maybe so I'll be let me start with common doc type. So when you're talking about doc type, you make HTML.
Sir, can you repeat what to download?
Yeah, we're downloading VS Code only, nothing else.
No, sir, that emit.
The extensions.
Oh, okay, yeah, extensions. Okay, yeah. Just pick out the names. I'll just say VS Code icons are for icons. You do not need that. Python and all you do not need. You can use one called Live Server. I'll tell you how Live Server is used. It is actually a good tool that you will be using. And just note it down right now. You can download it later also. Since I have less time, so I'll be just using those things. One, you can use ES6. So it has some of the snippets of JavaScript. One would be boilerplate. So boilerplate is very handy thing. And emit JSS, you can download one. Apart from the thing, I don't think you need anything right now. So other things will be exploring it. So let me create a test.js file. So when we're talking about, so I didn't make an HTML file here. So I'll be using directly JavaScript. As I told, we can create individual applications. So I'll be using just JavaScript to explain few of the codes. Then we'll be moving on with using HTML file. So First, we'll be learning about hosting. So what do you mean by hosting? So if you talk about hosting, it is generally how JavaScript behaves to the files and the declaration that you have on the file. So we'll be talking about those things. For example, so I told there are three ways where you can use for declarations. So for example, for variables, so you can use var, you can use let, and you can also use cons. So as the name says, sorry, this is generally because of the things that I already have because of the extensions. So it directly reads that, and you have const, okay, const. So there are three. I'll just comment this. So commenting means double line. In case anyone is having doubts, you just ask, okay? So I'll just comment this. Let me give a name, for example, a name. Okay, NME becomes Rahul. Okay, so shout out to Rahul, whoever is in the meeting. So next we can do console.log. Is the font and the theme fine, or should I change the theme?
It's fine.
Cool. Console.log, and what we are printing ANME, right? So this is the basic way how you'll do it. So what are the ways we can run this? So one way could be using an HTML files, but I'm using Node.js here directly. So you do not need to know about that. Just I'm explaining the syntax. So I'm using Node here. I'll tell you how we can use this on web browser directly and use the console.log of your web browser engine. So this is the first one. So I'll just save it. Okay, so I just saved it. I'll go to terminal. So this is my terminal. So I'll just type node and test. Yes. Okay, so we got error. Okay, sorry.
The upper one is not
wrote, yeah,
aiming.
right. Yeah, so I go here, I type it again. So I see an output called Rahul, right? So this generally happens on browser, but since I'm using this individually, I can just run it as. I hope you can see this as well. Yeah. I don't know if I can zoom it. Yeah, I think it's better. Yeah. So I just ran it. So next would be functions. I'll just give one basic function. I'll tell you about this later on. So call, I'll just make a call function and I write console.log and I'll give hello. Okay. And once I need to run this, I need to call this as well. Call. This could be one way. And now I'll be saving this file and I'll just run this again. So now you can see, I see hello and Rahul as well, both of them, right? But we generally get this function call even, so for if I'm using this function call before this, for example, this. So even if I'm doing this and I run this, I still can get this thing, but the call is in the beginning. But for example, if I have this var name after the console log thing here, so this time I won't be able to execute it because you'll get an undefined value, for example. So yeah, now I think you can see this. So let me save this and run. And since we are already writing it here, let me comment it. So once I have commented it, let me save it as well. Now you get an error code undefined. Since the way JavaScript works is the functions are called in the beginning whenever it's called, wherever it is called, you can look into the whole file and then locate it, or it can directly go to the function call, but you cannot do that same thing with variable. So in here I just wrote those things as well. I just ran it. So if you see here, I ran a function call here and I gave name and I gave name here and I gave 2 times name. One is before that, one is later on. So let's see how it works. Okay. Node 1. I'll just run it. Sorry, this didn't work because I have a lot of things here. I'll just run it from here. So the output here you get hello, undefined, ram, and hello. So undefined is for this one. Okay. So as I said, there are 3 things. So I'll tell you another interesting thing, you might not know this, or in case you know, that's quite good. So there is var and there is const and there is let, but we generally use let and const more and not var. So why do we do not use? Because there is a good reason. When the loop, whenever it runs on let, it goes out of the scope. It does not go out of the scope. Sorry, it blocks the scope. But yeah, so I just found it few days ago, so I'm just sharing it. So when we're declaring it with variable, you get limited to scope and the blank that you are using. I'll just run it and tell you. So this is the first one. This is the function. I'm using var. I'm using, if the function is true, print this, change the value and print this. And again, I'm using let console.log and I'm running it, right? So I'll just call this one first. So right now, the output that I'll get, let me run this. So the output that I'm getting is 2 and 2. So what do we get to learn? So for example, this is 1, right? So but we are using if and we are changing the value to 2. So once you have changed the value to 2, I'm printing here, I get the value of 2, that is fine. But whenever coming out of the scope, of if statement, I still get output of 2. So that is one of the reason why we generally do not use JavaScript, var. But if I'm running it on let, so it blocks the syntax till the scope only. So here I'm getting 2 and 1. So that means that if I'm using 1, I change the value to 2, I get output of 2 within this scope, and then I move on to console.log and I again get the same value. So the value is only changed in this scope. So this is one of the good thing and a good reason why we use this thing. So now we'll be moving on to more coding. So I'll be talking about more functions. So now let's go to HTML now. So let me create an HTML page. Index.html. So this one you guys can follow. This is pretty easy. So this one, as I said, if you're downloading a template, you can just give this shortcut. You press enter, you get the whole template, right? This is one of the basic templates. In other image, you get script as well. So script thing is also there in some of the codes. In some you might not find. So in the extensions that I told you, you just download it, you can run it as well. So this thing is not required. This is just for the browser to recognize what file you're writing. HTML language generally English. So these are some extra additional that you might not also need. Okay. So one more. So let us start with what we can understand with basic thing. So since I wrote the body, so let me give one example of the title h1. If you guys cannot follow this specifically, this is just HTML code, and now we'll be slowly moving on to how we can use JavaScript along with it. Okay. So h1 JavaScript maybe 101. So I need to run this. So I save the file. I can go to the file. Let me go to the file, reveal the file explorer. I go to the file. So this is the file that I have, and I can just run index.html. So whenever running this, I get this index.html. This is our first website. Let me close it, save it here. Okay, so that you guys can follow. Let me close this one as well. This is not required. This other one. Yeah, we'll be following this one. Yeah, now I can save it, keep it properly. Okay. How many of you were able to follow till this point? I'll just minimize my extra code editor. Anyone who is having doubts till now? Because now we'll be moving on to some of the complex ones as well.
How did you use that? How did you run that JS function that you created?
Okay, yeah, for JS function running directly, since I just wanted to tell you about the syntax, I could have used the HTML, went to the script part here and wrote here, but I didn't want to do that, so I ran it here. So how can you do this? You just need to install Node.js. So that was not in the scope of this tutorial, so I didn't add that. But if you want to download it, you just go to Node.js download. Okay, it's pretty basic. You just download it, you install it, you'll get a lot of tutorials how to install it, and then you'll be able to run this. But this is not even required. So once I'll be starting on with index.html, I'll be teaching you everything from here itself. Let me close this. Yeah, so this one is there. Let me give some paragraph tags. So yeah, so one, I told you emit extension, right? So what you can do with emit extension is I wrote hashtag, I wrote P1. Okay, I press enter. I directly get this shortcut. So I'll type hello, one would be one. Or you can just go traditional way. You can write P, you can go to ID equals P2, and you close it and you write hello world. So these are two of the text. And let me give you some other extra examples. So I'll be just using few of the other examples to just display. Let me just comment it right now, because we will be using it when we are using JavaScript directly. I'll just write some of the extra functions. For example, P and P3. I'll close it. I'll close it. I'll keep nothing here, for instance, and I'll do P4 for the same reason, and I'll write P5 as well. P5, and I'll close this as well, and P6. So I wrote few of the paragraph tags. So why we are using paragraph tags? We are just using paragraph tags so that we can change these values, whatever values this have, we will change these values direct from JavaScript. So since I came to script here, now we'll be talking about JavaScript itself. So let's start with pretty basic thing. Var. We talked about var. So let me start with let x equals to 5 and let y equals to 10. So since we are talking about a programming language, it has its own syntax, arrays, functions, and we'll be talking about some of those basics, and then we'll be moving on to actual side. So I wrote x equals to 5 and x equals to 10. So now what we need to do? For example, we need to sum this. Okay, for example, we need to just print this thing out. Okay, so what we can do, document dot get element by ID. So why are we using ID? We are using ID so that we can get element from here directly. Now I'll give P3, for example, P3, and then I'll do index.html. Sorry, inner.html, and what do I need to print? I'll print x plus. I'll just give a gap, and then I'll print y plus y. Yeah. So now whenever I save it, yeah. So let me run it from here. So one other extension that I told you was live server. So what does live server do is whenever I clicking on here, I get a function called open from live server. So I'll just click it here, and now it's opening here. So this is the function of live server. Give me a moment. I'll just have a sip of water. Yeah. So the functionality of using live server is you can directly create a local host and you just print it. So whenever, as soon as you save the file from here, you can get the output from here. So I can do this thing. So I get 5 and 10, right? So 5 and 10. So now how can I do addition? So there are two ways I can do addition. One second. Okay, some of you were not able to follow. I use what didn't you get?
So I asked
You
my
can
doubt
just ask.
that how you run that JSON code. I asked it.
.js, right? Yeah, okay. You just ask it. Since I'm starting from basics, right? You are free to ask. So this is a basic reason. Since I'll tell you my experience. Okay, whenever I started, I didn't even touch JavaScript as well. So I just started. I used HTML and CSS. I didn't even know about JavaScript until I was in some studying some materials online during my second year towards the end. So this is just the basic sense, so that you can use JavaScript on your own. You can at least do some calculations, some small mini clip games you can make on that. So that is why I'm starting with very basic. If you have
Okay.
doubt, you can just ask. Yeah. I told about this. So and we need to add, for example. So how can we do add? So even in any other language, we create a third variable. We give two of this variable and we just add, right? So that is a simple way how we can add. One other way we can do is we can not use this. We can directly create a function of adding and call the function and then do it. Let's just run both of them. I'll make a function for multiplying it, and for adding, let's use a variable. So let z equals to x plus y. Pretty simple, right? So document dot get element by id. So since you can see whatever keys I'm pressing, so you can follow from that as well. And I'll use p4 this time. P4. I'll use inner.html. What I'll do, I'll print z directly. So once I save this, I get 15, right? So I get the sum directly. So now let's create a function of multiplying. The function what we can do multi, and we can give x comma y. Right. So now what we can do, what we can also do is we can give a variable here also, or we can directly return x comma y, right? So once you are returning this, now what we need to call, we just need to call the function. So multi is a function, so you do x comma y and we save it. So we didn't get an output because we are not printing it anywhere. Okay, so that is another reason. So for easy sake, let us keep p equals to this. This runs the function. Now this function is displayed with p5. Let's do that. Document dot get element by id. I'll be using p5 this time, and inner HTML, and p this time. So we got 10. We shouldn't have got 10 because, yeah, so since we are giving the value, let me give the value even 10 p5. So what is using p5?
Where you've written the function, you're returning x comma y.
Okay, sorry, yes, right. I can make mistakes, guys. Yeah. So 50 we get, right? So this is a function that you're writing, and we get 50 output. And now moving on, this went well. So let's take some better examples. Let me just check the examples. Okay, okay. So since we are using these functions, right? So let me introduce you to one self-invoking function. For example, I do not need to run it. I do not need to call it. So how do I print it directly? So for doing that, I'll just make another function. So function, how I can self-invoke without calling it later on. So I'll make function, and I'll create everything here. Document dot get element by id. I don't think I have p5. Okay, I have p6. Let me create few more. Okay, let me create one more. Yeah. So p5, p7. These are just IDs. We are using IDs so that we can particularly locate particular function. Okay. 8. Okay, sorry, 8 and 9. So we have now 6, 7, 8, 9. So we'll be using these variables, right? So document.get element by ID, and ID is what? So ID we are using p6 this time, p6, and then I'm creating inner HTML. HTML equals to self function. I just wrote, so this is just the output. So as I said, inner HTML shows the output. So I'm just writing inner HTML and using an output function here. And here I can close this. What I'm missing. So once I'm doing this, so as we are running in the function, so we're using two codes as well, this one, and we'll be closing it now. So how do we close it? We close it colon. I save it and I get a self function. So I didn't need to call it again and again. I just wrote a function, I added it, and I just ran it. Right. So this is simple as that. So okay, this was one good thing. Another we can do. Let's do addition in an array, for example. Okay, that will be a interesting one. So let me create a var again. Var as this time. Add. Let me give 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right. So now we need to display this. So what I can do document dot get element by ID. We use P6. Now we'll be using P7. This is a sample of numeric array. There are other built-in functions. I'll talk about few of them, but we won't be able to discuss all of them in brief. Okay. Inner HTML. Then I'll do S. So what do you get the output as? We are not getting anything output because this is a function and we cannot display directly any arrays. Okay. So I'll go here again. This time I'll write a function. Add. Yeah. Add. And I'll not add anything right now. What I can do, where a, for example, which means arguments, whatever arguments you are passing, those lengths, right? So arguments dot length would be the arguments that we are passing in. We can keep a function for sum equals to 0 first, where sum equals to 0. Then we can use a for loop, for example. We can use for loop. For loop is pretty simple. So here, since we are not using int, so we can use we do not need to use int, so we can use directly I, and we write I is less than the arguments that you are passing, the lengths that we have. We have a lengths, and we'll be doing I plus plus. Now sum would be sum equals to sum plus arguments, and that will be I, since we are using I, right? Now what do we need to do? We need to return this output. So let's see if you're getting, yeah. So how did you get this exactly? So we are using any arguments that we have here. We are using this argument, and this argument is passed here, and we are displaying sum directly from here. So in the function add, we are getting this output, and since we add this 5, 5, 10, this is 15. So we get the arguments. Whatever arguments are passing before this, that arguments are being passed here, and we are directly using it. Okay, now let's move on to other functions. I'll be teaching you a few of the other functions. Let me give you in a brief. What are built-in functions? So built-in functions are those functions that I told that has less overhead, and whenever you're running it, we can easily get some of the functionality that is built in. So we can use it in arrays, we can use it in strings. So those things you can directly use. So let us run some of the built-in function using mostly the arrays that we have, right? Let me take an example array. Yeah. So one good example, we can talk about cars, for example. So since we already have a lot of users of these functions, let me create this sample doc again. I'll just copy all of this, just the above part. I'll create index2.html, index2.html, right? And I'll paste it here. What all things are missing? We are missing script, and we are missing HTML, right? Rest everything is working. We have p tags already there, and let us run this. Click here. Run on live install. So here we just get the title here. So now we'll be using this. So we are generally talking about arrays and how we are using arrays, for example, right? And for displaying arrays here, let me take it into the left side. Yeah, here. Now let me give you a brief here. So since we're talking about cars, so So let me, what class do you like? Let me give Audi, for example. First one. Next could be, yeah, could be another one. Yeah, you need to separate it with commas, okay? Commas and quotes, so that we know. So there are two things. There are arrays and there are objects. So I'll be telling you both of them in a brief. How you'll be able to execute this code. So array Kia and one could be BMW, for example. So these are three. This is an array. So how do you display this array? There's P3 and P2. Okay, I didn't tell you one small thing. I'll just add it quickly. So I told you P1 and P2 we are not using, right? So if I say this, I have hello and hello world, right? So how do you manipulate the things that are already here? So it is the same way. We go to document and get element by ID. You go to P1 and you go to inner HTML and we change it to hello was the first one. By I can write in the second one. So whenever I run this, it is already changed here. So JavaScript has the functionality that can use all the features, not all the features, but most of the features of HTML and CSS within itself. So this was the first one. So I wrote by, right? So what if I need to change the color of this by? So I can use CSS as well from JavaScript. I'll take the document and get element by ID again. I'll go to P1, right? I'll go to style this time. I'll be explaining you this more. This is just one example how I told you how we can link CSS as well. Then I'll go to color. Now I'll type red, right? So now we can see we change the color as well, right? So the things that I'm doing, I'm not even using CSS. I'm not using HTML part, but I'm directly changing it from the JavaScript. So that is the power of JavaScript, that once you learn it, you'll be able to implement things from here directly. So I just told you these two brief things.
CSS.
Yeah, anyone had doubt? Yeah.
So using this method is it more convenient than using CSS because it has some features like hover and click. So
Yeah,
I find
as I
them
said,
more.
yeah, we can add those things as well, but we have since I said JavaScript is very vast, there are other things as well that has hover and those things, but that might make it more complicated. But when should we ideally use this? For example, I wrote I'll tell you one brief thing, very small one, just to add that out, like when should we actually use this? So let me create a button. Okay, button type, I wrote button and I close this. I wrote change color, right? So now we have a button, right? So I have a button, so I do not have any functionality as of now. So how do we add functionality? First of all, you need to call this button from JavaScript. So how do you call? As I said, we use document.getElement, right? So let me just introduce it to ID. I'll give ID and I'll give btn1. So I wrote an ID giving btn1. And now since I already have an ID, now I'll be calling it on here, right? So how we can call it? So there are some further things. I'll just use it right now. I'll just explain it a bit later. Once we finish the array part, we'll be talking about that. So there are things called event listeners. So what functions? For example, what events we are doing? So click is an event listener, right? So I'll click and that will be listened by the function that we're using. So I'll just create var this time. I'm using var x equals to, I'll just write document dot get element. We do not need to use var, but for example, I'm taking one variable, I can manipulate it in 3-4 ways, right? But if I'm not taking a variable, I can just run one function at a time. So I'll just keeping it in var, and I'll just take which function we have. So btn1, right? btn1, and here we'll be adding dot add event listener. So what event we are adding? So we are adding click event, right? Click event. And now I'll give you a function. What function we are doing? So maybe color. Maybe I wrote color. Yeah, I just wrote color. Okay. So color is the name of function that we'll be using, and add event listener is the click thing that will be running from there, and one will be directly color. I'll close this. Now we'll go to function color. Since I already called color there, I'll write here. Now what I can do, I can copy this. Okay, I can copy this. I can write the code here, and I'll close this. So I think you got the idea. So what is the idea? So the idea is we have a button. So and we are adding an event listener. Event listener is what event is being listened. So I wrote here click, right? So click event is there. Yeah.
Condition to that event, right?
Yeah, it generally added more functionality. For example, I added click listener. So the function only runs when this event listener happens. So once I go here, I click here, color changed, right? So this is one good way how you can use these things. Because now, for example, if you need to use this in CSS, you cannot do this. You need JavaScript for this. So I added an event. There are a lot of events. I'll talk about few of the other events. This is click is one of the event. So you just I clicked it. I can do anything. I can change the color of the whole background, for example. I'll do document.body.style.background color. Okay, I have a background color. So let me give a background color of equals to green. Yes, pretty simple. I'll save it. So once I click change color, the whole background changes. Right. So I'm using JavaScript here to change the elements of CSS. So generally for simple website, you do not need to use this. But when you're slowly adding functionality for anything, this could be one. So also I wrote 3 functions, right? So I can add more. So what more I can add? Maybe I can add one alert. Alert that could be the overall now change. So I give an alert once this happens. So I'll save it. I am in the back of the home page. I click change color. I get an alert first. This happens. Okay. I click OK, and the color changes. So I added 3 functionalities in one button. Okay, this is how we will start exploring. So I just gave you a brief. In case you didn't understand this, we'll be doing it again. Don't worry. Let me finish the arrays part first. Yeah. So we were in this part, right? So let me copy this here. Maybe I just got it. I pasted it here. We have 3 things. Now what we can do, we can display it in some of the p tags that we are using. So which p tag we can use? For example, you're using p1, right? So we can use p3 this time. For example, this is free. So document dot element, we can write p3 and inner HTML, and then we can write, since we are displaying an array, we can write array and array and cars. So we get an output, right? Array cars. We're displaying array here directly in the separator with using cars. Other what we can do is we can check if it's an array or not. Is array. So now if you do this, you get yes or no, true value. We're just checking it. And if you need to just display a single value, this is simple. Then we go to cars. We'll change the value. Cars, and we'll go to 1 and maybe 2. Yes, we can 2 and Lambo. So I change the name. Once I save it, I'll run it. This changed the value. So now I need to display it again, right? So to display it again, I'll just copy this. I'll go here. I'll copy it here. This time it got changed. Right. Now you might think why we are changing here and the change got added here itself. Why this got added itself? Because we are changing the p tag itself, right? So if I do p4 this time here, we'll get 2 different tags. One was BMW, one is Lambo, which just changed, right? And now also the function you must have heard if you have learned DSA, or some of you haven't learned, that's fine. So there is a concept of stack using push and pop. So I'll just explain that as well. So for example, let me do One second. Let me use other tags as well. So I just did this. Okay, so this printed this Lambo in both the things. I'll just comment it for a moment. Comment this as well, just one. And now we'll be changing into this one. So for example, cars dot push is an operation. So what we are pushing in, we can push in Ferrari, for example, right? So Ferrari could be one good thing we just pushed. So we save, once we save it, it's already in the array, and we just run it now. Now I got one more value, right? Other we can do is there's a function called pop. So let me just directly run it. Dot pop. So pop prints the what thing is being popped, right? So that is being printed. Now if I display, sorry, this again happened. This again caused an error because we are using same p tags. Let me change these ones. P4, P5, and P6. Now these all things will be happening one by one, right? These things, Ferrari, and we pushed out Ferrari, so Ferrari was out. So one another function is called shift. So it is shifting the value of what values are printing. So this is the first one that shift happens. First value of that things. For example, what if we do unshift then? Cars unshift, and let me add Benz this time, and let me print using. Sorry, I again added the wrong function. Yeah, P7. So shift means the first element. Now if I do this, I'll use P7 this time. Maybe use P8 this time. So what changes did I actually make? So this time shift means I'm using from the first one, and unshift means I'm adding that to the first part of the element, right? And this is one. And another could be joining, how we can join the strings. That is one good thing. So I'll just, there are other functions called slice, p-slice. Those things will be too long if I cover those things. Let me just add a few more things. Maybe if you're doing reverse function, reverse. So now this got reversed. Okay, I can join this, maybe dot join and give exclamation marks. So this got joined with these things. There was comma before. I could have added a blank space. So blank space is here, and we got joining. Or I can write question mark. I get question mark, and then the separators that are being used. And I can use functions and all those things are always there. Functions with the arrays. Other things. Told you this. There are strings. Let me give few, just few examples of strings. Are you guys able to follow me? Anyone who couldn't follow? In case you don't understand the syntax, that is fine. Just understand the functionality, how these things are working. Okay.
It's clear. We're able to understand.
Okay, cool. So let me give just few examples of strings. Let me give few more p tags. And this time I'll do 10. And let me give as1, as2. And as4, right? So I added 4, as1, as2, as3, as4. We have p9. So let me give one var first. Var a equals to hello. This was this one. And for example, how do you print this now? We can do same function. We can do document dot get element by id, and we can use p9 this time. and go to inner HTML and we print A. So we get the value A, right? Now simple manipulations using the index. I give E1 means it starts on 0, so giving 1 means E give 1, and slice. I can use a function called slice. So what is slice? Let me since we have S1 this time. Let me give a dot slice. Slice means what all things were starting with and starting and closing integers. So I can use 2,5, and I'll run it. Something got stuck here. Yeah. So 2 to 5. So 2 to 5 means 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 2 to 5, I get the output. I can use minus as well. I can use substring as well. Right now, you might not understand substring, but that is completely okay. Let me give substring thing. These are all the things that you will slowly, gradually learn once you're actually using it. Okay. Sub str, and then I can write for example. No, let me use sub str first. Sub str, and then again 2 to 5. 2 to 5. And this gave me 2 more elements because it was the substring. Let me add p2. Yeah. Starting from 2 and then taking all the elements to substring. And now one, let me do with replace document, not get element by ID, and then add S3 this time, and inner HTML dot replace. Sorry, replace. So what are we replacing? So we can replace W and maybe replace H here. I means case insensitive. So this slash I means case insensitive. So case insensitive means it can be either small or either capital. So that won't be an issue. And I'll just type W, for example, if I'm replacing a W. So once I display, so that was hello, and I replaced it with H with I W. So hello was the output. There are other things called two lowercase. So these are things you will know. Maybe two lowercase. These are just the simple functions. I can I'll just run it here itself. Maybe go to S4. Yeah, I have S4 as well. So document get by ID S4 inner HTML, and then I'll just type a dot lowercase, just this function. A dot lowercase, and I'll just remove this. And I run it, so I get the lowercase thing, right? So there are trims, there are start with, we can add with started, we can include some button. We can choose which character is at a particular index position. So character at 0 maybe. So dot char at. So these all things you can know. You do not need to memorize all of this. So what is the character at? 1 means I have character E. Right. So I told you arrays and strings. Do you guys have any doubt? Like anyone? Now you guys can ask few of the questions. And now we'll be moving on some implementation thing. Anyone of you having doubt?
Sir, can you please explain the join method again?
Okay. Yeah. So join method is for example, the default join is comma, right? So if I'm not using default join, let me change. Let me give one more element here. Let me give t hashtag s5 and give hashtag s6. So I give two more s5 and s6. I'll copy this once. I wrote it here. Let me not give reverse this time. Just join. And let me not give join first of all. I'll just do cars and I'll do S5. So what output do we get? Okay, so I think we got lost a bit. So let me include this in the end. So we have three things, right? Lambo, Kia, and Benz. Now, maybe the join method means the comma is the join method that is being used here. So let me change that one. For example, dot join this time. So what things we can join with? Let me give equals to, for example. I'll save it. So the join method replaces the comma and changes it with equals to. So whatever you give inside the equals to, I can give any characters, one, anything. It will be adding it in the between of them. Okay. So I had a question. So do you guys want to learn the implementation of this in a game, or you want to learn this part, the part that I was explaining you with the buttons and stuff? These are actual things that you can learn. Where is that?
Button is more interesting.
The game one would be, I'm thinking of a guessing game that will be very simple. We'll be coding it here itself. Pretty simple. I'll be explaining you the whole code. You click a button, you guess a number, and in case you fail, you'll just print an output. So button one. Okay, what we can do? Let's do the game one. I'll try to add more of the interactiveness. For example, I add an event listener, right? So let me add some other element so that we'll understand and use it. And since we are going to upload this on GitHub as well, so we'll make that one and we'll just upload it on GitHub as well. Okay. So let's do that one. So everyone can follow me. You guys can start coding. Let's start. Let me give a name. So these all things I can show you in a brief. Let me just tell you what all functions these are. I just added sample codes so that you can understand. What do you mean by on blur, on change? So let me just run this page. So okay, so the function and modify the text and click outside and on change. For example, this value when it's being changed, so what happens? I'll just go LOHP, we'll go back. This value is being changed and the new value is this. So what is this? This is, for example, in the event listener, we were adding click, right? So in this event listener, what we are adding? We're adding on change. On change is a function. So what function it is? It is a function called on change. Let me remove this. Yeah, so this is a text field. The default value is hello, and on change. I mean, that means hello ka value, whenever you're changing it, my function runs. So my function runs on that value. It checks that value as a parameter and it checks that. Okay. Now, when you're running the function, we get an alert. The value is being changed. The new value is plus val. That means that what is the new value? It prints that one. So onChange is another function. You can add this function on the event listener part as well. The word might be different. So I mean, the onChange might not be the exact word that you can add on event listener thing. I mean, this one, event listener, if you cannot get that. Yeah, this one. So for example, here we added mouse over. Okay, I didn't run this. Let me run this. So I made this function. So what all things that does it do? Let me show you. Okay. So I have added a lot of functions. So first, as I told, I use got an element. I got an element for the button, and I added one event listener that was click, first one, and I ran a function called change color on click. So what will happen if I change click? The inner.html will change new text to HTML and the background color will change. So I'll click here. So once I clicked here, so I think you cannot see it, but yeah. So hello and change world happened when I clicked it, right? And another thing is there, and P2 change color style pink. This is another. So I added two of the things. For example, I have added mouse over as well. I have added click as well. So you got black one. Why did you get the black one? Because I hovered here, right? Let me give you some other color. Let me give you red. And what is the event listener? The event listener is mouse over. So whenever my mouse goes over that part, it runs that. Okay, I'll just go over it. So the background color changed to red. So as I told, X is the variable that you're calling. Style is the CSS part that I told how we are using it. Then we type a syntax called background color. You don't have to memorize it once you have started to use it, right? You can just search. I'll give you some resources. You can go there whenever you're going there. You can look into these things, and you'll get more idea on how we are actually implementing this part, right? So this time we are changing the color to red. So this division changes to red, and question. Yes, Varun, if you want, I can send the HTML code specifically. That won't be an issue. But these are basic syntax. You can just understand it. This is basically for understanding. I'll give you a resource that is called W3 School. You might have heard. If you haven't heard, you just go through that. You'll get even better examples than whatever I did. All right. And this one. And I added two things: mouse over and click. So whenever I click, the background changes to black. Background changes to blue. Blue, it's here. And the word changes to hello world. So this is new thing. Click. Hover is a function. Click is another function. Two functions, two event listeners. And another event listener that I have is changing the color to pink. So when does this function work? So this function works when document get element P2. What is the P2 part here? So what is my P2? P2 is new text. So this is the P2 part, right? New text. So I go to new text. So this is a new text, right? So whenever I go over it, it changed the color to, sorry, let me go here, because whenever I'm going here, no, this is executing. And whenever I'm going here, this is executing. So I added same changes to the same part. So one could be, so one is this font size. So let me reload this first. So first, nothing is happening. There are three functions. Normal here, I go to hover here, I change the function, I click here, I have another function. Now I have another function on mouse over on P2. So my P2 is new text. I go here. So whenever I hovered it, I change the font size to 30px. So now the font size is changed. And whenever I go to here, this new text, then I'm changing the font color of this one. Font color of this one. All right, let me run it again. So let me run it again. So I'm in new text. I click over here. I change the color to red. I go over here. I change the font size, and I click here and I change the background color. So I'm doing a couple of changes here with the things of the function and event listeners. So event listener can be a topic on itself, because there are a lot of event listeners that you can look on. I just wrote, no, there can be event listener on your key presses as well. Let me check if I have that one. So for example, if I'm pressing a key, that is an event listener. So let me, I'll give you an example later on. Let me not just type that code as well. I have that as well. Let me check. I'll just show a form that I made. Yeah. Form with video. Yeah. So this is a form that I made. For example, let me do a full screen. Let me go to actual page. So this is a form, right? So here we are using a lot of JavaScript basically. So one is, this is CSS. Ayush was talking about this hover function. So I'm changing the font color, and this one, and there's names and all. This I'm changing with the hover thing, and this is JavaScript. I'm going here. I'm hovering over here, and it is giving me X coordinate and Y coordinate. So what are X coordinate? For example, I'm pressing this part of this box. I'm clicking here. So what is the X coordinate? X coordinate is this, and Y coordinate is this. I go here, I click here. What is the X coordinate? X coordinate is this, and Y coordinate is this. Okay, this is another. And one, I told you about key presses. So I wrote this as a hover function. I go here and check if control is pressed or not. So I'll press CTRL and I get CTRL is pressed or not function, right? So this is another use of this, of changing key. And what event listener I'm using here, I'll just show it to you. This is inline CSS, in HTML CSS. I wrote it inside it. So let's not go here. Let's directly go on to the part that we're using on. Let me just type it. CTRL. CTRL key is placed over here. So see, I do not have any function written here over here. Yeah, I don't have a function here, but let me search. I'm using it in JavaScript directly, right? So what is the JavaScript function I'm using? So I'm using document.element and I'm getting this element. And on this function, on key down function. So okay, let me give you a brief in other functions as well. So one I told you event listeners, okay, so that you do not get confused. Let me go back here. Let me give simple thing. Let me go to this thing itself. I have already all the functions here. I have that page as well. I click here, the function is there, right? Now if I need to run the same function with other way could be, one is event listener, another is adding functions here. So let me show you that quickly. P ID will be P4, for example. And now what I can do is I've given the ID. Now I'll give the function directly. So here I've written mouse over, right? So I've given the function here itself. Okay, I can give a on click thing, on click directly. So on click is a function. Now what function I'm running? I can run font. For example, a font is a font size fonts function and close it. Hello, right? I wrote this. This is a function, and I get a hello print here. And on click of this, let me give this. So what? Okay. We cannot directly add this one, but what example we can take? On click is generally used in buttons. So since you're not using any button here, let me take just another button. Let me give p button 2, and I'll write the function here. Actually, that function would have been not very useful. On click here, and then I wrote a function called fonts. All right, and this time I'm so what essentially is my ADI is I have a button called copy it. I have a button called click me here, click me to maybe click me to as another button. And now what you're doing is I have a text, I have a button. Now I'll be using this button to change any format of this text. All right. So first we did event listeners directly. So event listeners does not require you to change any of the code that you're writing in body part. But if you're changing it in the other part, then we are using this function. And I'll just run the function here directly. Function, which function are you using? So function funds, right? Funds bracket. I'll close this. I'll make this one. And then now what we can add is what thing we are changing. So document dot get element by ID, simple. So what element we are getting? We are getting this element P4, right? P4, and then we're getting dot, and then inner HTML. And what we are changing? Maybe change the inner HTML to bye, right? So that is the function that I'm running. So I wrote another way of functions. Yeah, so now I'm here. I click here. Sorry, I cannot change it. Wait. What function? Element. I think we cannot change this one. Let me change some colors maybe. I'll just go to style. Color blue. Okay, there is some issue here. Let me just check if I can just find it out. Change the function name. Okay, I'm missing out on something. Okay, sorry, it's already changing. Sorry for that. It's already changing since yeah. So since we were not zoomed in, we could not figure it out. It's already blue. Let me reload this. Right now it's simple, the thing that we did here, and I click here, I change the color to blue. All right. Actually, I could have done this background and I wrote color. You could have seen this better going here and clicking this. So this worked. So this is another way where I wrote the function here. I wrote the name and what things we are doing on click and function running this, and I defined the function here. So this is another way how you can use functions. So the first one I told you using event listeners, directly going event listeners, writing a function what you want to do, and going back and writing the code there. Or we can go here directly, type of function, change it, and go to the element that you are writing. Okay, so now we have done mostly in covered the part. Now we'll be just making that game. We'll try to get it on GitHub and we'll just wind the event now. So let me go to an event. So maybe I wrote a name called guessgame.html. Cool. Since we are about to use it on GitHub, let me change the name for it just for the sake. So whenever if you have understood about HTML pages on GitHub, it generally takes on the .html part, right? So let me just replace this one and use HTML itself. .html. I'll just change this name just so that we do not interrupt this index.html naming convention. And now this guess game, I'll just make it index. I went here. Let's just start coding now. Just try to follow it. If you cannot follow this specific one, I'll provide you the code. Don't worry. For this one, it's fine. If you have understood the other things, this is not something big. It's just that you're compiling all some of the codes here directly. Let me give a boilerplate here, and let me run it on live server first. So we got our basic started. Nothing is here because we haven't added anything here. Better space. Sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah. Yeah. So now. Okay. So I'll just type it quickly, and later on I'll show you the final game as well. Just let me show it. Guess game. Yeah. So it will take a lot of time if I start explaining everything. So let's start with the things quickly. What we can do, we can start with a head first, h1 maybe. H1 could be ID. I can keep ID as head1. 1 second. Yeah, head1, and I wrote that welcome to this game. We have a title. Don't worry about anything else. We'll just figure it out later on. Right now, we'll just hard code everything. So let me give 2 buttons, for example. ID, I can give div1, and then I can give 2 buttons here to start and close the things that you're doing. So type could be button itself, and ID we can keep 2 IDs, BT and 1, and start could be 1 button, and next could be another button type button ID 2, and I can do reset. So I have 2 buttons here, right? I'll close the button. Now what we can do is function that we run. Function, let's look on that a bit later. So let's go to actual thing that we need. So now we need, if you are guessing a random number, we need a random generator first. So what you can do, we can go const number with the number that we're guessing, and you can use the math function. You don't need to memorize this. I just found it somewhere, so I just added it. And random, and how much random generate we need? We'll add 10 generators. All right. And now since you are running the buttons here, so let me give var x equals to document dot get element by id one, and running event listener here itself. I'll add event listener. What event listener I want? I want click event listener, and I'll start the game, starters game. Okay, so that is here. And now let's describe the function now. Function what? Function starter. And what parameters are giving? We are not giving any parameters as of now. Let's go to const number. Gnum could be guest number, so I can write guest number. And what prompt? So we need a prompt to enter the value. So I gave a prompt value. So what prompt value? Please enter any number from 1 to 10. All right. So this is entering any number. I'll just save it. When I click here, I get a guess. This is basic. So this is guessing a number. Now what we'll do? We need to check if this number is same or not. So gnum equals to num. So what is num? Num is randomly generated number, and gnum is the number that you are pressing. All right. So we'll do this colon, and here we can give console.log. I mean, console.log is not printed here itself, but it is printed on the browser itself. So on the browser, if you go inspect elements, here you find the actual console. So console. So this console shows the actual JavaScript working. So that time I told that we are using console.log and typing something there, right? And console.log is generally found inside the browser here. I told you that we can find console.log in a browser. So this is a place where you find the console.log outputs. Okay, so I'll start this. So right now I have nothing here. So one function we need to see the guest number. So what is the guest number? So for that, what we can do is let me finish the guessing thing first. So what all changes we want? So we can change two things since we are already using. So let me give two of another division. So that division could be telling that okay, you won the game, or another could be you didn't win, or you couldn't match. So two buttons would be there, right? So ID could be div2. You just understand the code. You do not need to know all these codes. Okay, h2, and I'll give an ID called p1, and I wrote this one. All right, and we just need. Let me give. Okay, this is fine. Let's use p1 right now, and document dot get element by ID, and p1 here, and then inner HTML, and then we'll give matched well played. So the number when it is matched, we get a well played answer finally. And also what we can do is, since it is matching, so we can give a color as well, document.body.style, and we're changing the background color as well, so that we know that we won the game. And I'll give a green color code, so it is 78B20. So that is a light green color, I guess. 5. Yeah, so that is a light green color. So right now we are getting an error because we are not using an else function right now. We need an else as well. Sorry, this is wrong. Oh. These two functions will be running. So one will be printing output, one will be changing the color of the background. And I went here, and now we'll do the else function, else part. Else part could be console.log the number didn't match, and maybe the original number was and give the value num, gnum, right? Guest number. All right, so I wrote this. The number was gnum. Okay, this one is done. Yeah. So now, okay, so when you're changing this same element, right? So this, I'll copy these two things simply. I'll add it here. Color we can do red. Let me give a red shade, 7F maybe, 7, 7F. This was one, not matched. Try again. All right, and now what we can do is we need an event listener for this reset button. So we have a reset button, but we need to reset it, right? So we use btn1, but we didn't use btn2. So let me just add something for btn2 as well. Get element and btn2 and add event listener. Click, could be one click. All right, and function I can, so this time I'm writing function inline directly. I'm trying to write inline. I'm not adding additional. So I'm writing function here directly. I do not need to give a name and separately type functions. I'm giving a name here and I'm typing location.reload. So location is a function that reloads the page. Yeah, so I did a function for reloading the page. I'll close it. So just for the sake that we know what number was actually guessed, so let me give console.log and give num, for example. So what we only did was we created a function, we matched it if it is matching or not, and we gave a change in the background color and try again and matched, well played. That's it, right? So let us run this. What all things you are getting now? So let me get the browser. Yeah, so start. I'll start with 5. Okay, there is some issue with the constant. What constant am I missing? Let me just check. Oh yeah, so I used the wrong function here. So gnum equals to, it will be equals to because we are comparing both the values. So that went wrong, right? So now when we're clicking start, I like 5. I think okay, yeah. So this time we found what value was matched. We changed the background color as well, and I think there's a typo here. So yeah, now once I save this code, now this time what I get is console start 5. This time we didn't match, so the number was 5. Here let me give this number. So if you want to always win this game, so what you can do, copy this console.log, copy this, give it here, somewhere here. Now what will happen is whenever you're loading the site, so 10, so default level 10, so 10 is generated, right? So whenever I start, so the output is 10, so I'll give 10. I'll always win. For example, I press reset, I load the page, I get 9. So 9 is in the console log, but we are not showing it to anyone. We click on start, you click the number 9, we close it. But for a normal user, what they'll use is they'll close this. For example, they will reset the page, they'll start, they'll give a number, they'll click enter, not match, try again. Okay, so we basically went to the functionality. So now, as we said, that we are using CSS for the styling. So let me just quickly style some of the elements here, and our game is ready so that we actually could publish it. Can you till then quickly raise your hand who does not know GitHub at all, like anything about GitHub? Quickly raise your hand. And for changing some of the CSS thing, I'll just use inline CSS. So you know the CSS that is included in the HTML file is given by HTML, right? So given by style inside head. So I'll just keep style and let me start with head. So we have a head one, right? So head one, we can keep it on center, head one, and we'll open the bracket, and then we'll give color. Maybe color could be blue, for example. And we can do display flex. We can do enter. Simple as that. Head one, justify content, and that one. Okay. So next one, we need division to be in the center. So display, we can do flex here as well, and we can give flex direction as row. You can give margin because it won't be on top. px. Okay, let me just save it. Okay, yeah. So I got this heading, I got this thing on the side. Now we need to bring it in center, increase the size. Those things are remaining just. And for that, what I can do is justify content. Just center. And I can align the items in center. Now we need to align the button. So button, we can add some bit of padding. We can give around 5px. And we can give some font size, maybe font size is very small there. So font size 35, for example. Yeah, so now what all changes we have? So we have quite big, I mean, that is too big. So let me give 25. Yeah, so now we have this thing. It's fine, I guess start and stop is fine. So now to give a bit of gapping between start and I'll just give justify content as space evenly. Yeah, this should be helpful. Yeah, so I get start, reset, start button, everything works. Now for this start, this output, let me just mark it in the center, and that will be our final output. Do p1 display justify content center, and we can give font size, maybe font size 35px, and finally give some margin, so that margin, maybe top we can give 20px, 30px. Yes, so we did this. So let's see what all things we have. So I think our color didn't change, our head color didn't. Oh yeah, I think I made a mistake here. Yeah, this one. So this is, let's see what all things we have now. So we loaded the game. Welcome to the guessing game. We click on start. Guess any number between 1 to 10. Okay, so let me give 5. I'll click OK. Not match, try again. I'll click reset. I'll start. I'll click 10. Not match, try again. So this is a pretty easy game. And now if you need to know the answer every time, you just go to inspect elements. You see the console.log first. Yeah. Right now the guessing answer is 8. Let me give this. Yeah. So guessing answer is 8. So if I give 8, 8, I always win, right? I'll just reset it again. I'll just reset the page. Start, give 4, I win. Okay. So do you guys have doubts till now? These are basic implementation. Nothing more. I only added some of the CSS here this time. And this thing you don't need to remember. I just it is a random number generator. That's it. Event generator, I told you how we are doing. We are just using click event to start and stop, and we're just matching with if statement, nothing else. Okay. So do you guys have any doubt quickly so that we can move on to GitHub now? Okay, I think we can move on. So do you want to learn GitHub on using a command prompt directly, or should I teach you graphically? That will be way simpler.
Graphically.
Okay, graphically. Okay, cool. Then what you can do, since you have this code, let me just copy this code for easiness. It is here. I'll go to my sandbox. This was my starting page, right? So I'll just open a folder. Desktop. I have a VS Code folder named. I'll select this folder. I'll create So for the easy sake, I went to the fresh window. I made an index.html file, saved here, save the code. Code is here. I'll just delete this extra file. Delete this extra file, remove it. So we have the index.html file. Our code is here. Our game is ready. Now we need to deploy it. So one good thing about Microsoft is Microsoft already provides you with additional things on Azure Cloud Client. Okay, so I'll give you a brief on how to host a static page. So Azure has its own doc on if you're getting, for example, if you have a student license, what you can do, you can go to Azure portal. There is very easy static website holding if you have. So whenever you are applying with a college ID, you get a few credits from Azure directly, and you can directly, for example, once you go to the template, I couldn't take the screenshot, but once you go to the site, if you follow this instruction, and generally, if you get this sort of page, right, once you need to create a storage account. Storage account is like a server where you're storing the page. Then you find you upload the file. You directly upload what file you are adding, for example, index file you are adding, and you upload the files, and files is there, and you give a link. So URL link is generated automatically. That URL link, whenever you are using, you can directly get it on Azure service, and the website is there itself. And if you're talking about GitHub, GitHub is powered by Microsoft itself. So let me look into here. So let me quickly log in to my ID. I don't remember. Let me check password. One sec. Password. I'll just log in. So just logged into this thing. So sorry. Yeah. So this is my page. I'll go to new repository, for example. So now I'll type guessing game. All right. So I wrote a guessing game thing, and now I can keep it as a public or a private. So let me keep it as a public. I'll give a README file, and I'll just create a repository. Okay. So simple. Script. Yeah, so this one was one. I'll just create a repository. This is a graphical way. It is very simple. So once you have a repository directly, so here when I go, I have an option called initialize repository, right? So we're not able to initialize because let me quickly install Git as well. Let me teach you that. Apart from this, what you all you need to do is you just need to upload a file here. But let me teach you graphically how you can do. It will just take 2 minutes or so. Let me install Git quickly. So this is how you generally do. So if you cannot follow me right now, you just watch the recording. You'll get more brief idea. Let me install the portable version. It's downloading. This is how we can use Azure. We can use VS Code with GitHub directly by initializing a repository. not sure if I downloaded it. We didn't install it, so I think we need to get an installation itself for Windows. I think I have the file. Let me just copy the file if I have it here. Tools. Okay, I have the file. Let me just copy it. I cannot move it, so I need to download it here. Okay, I already downloaded it. Let me just install it quickly. Install it. It is default. You don't need to do anything. I'm just changing VS Code as my default code editor. I'll go next. Nothing need to be known right now. You just need to continue and just install it. So Git is an version control system that allows you to use GitHub directly, and VS Code uses this Git to connect your thing with the repository. So I skipped two of the steps. What were two of the steps? Were initializing it everything from VS Code itself, but we made a repository directly here, right? So what we could also do, we didn't require a repository to be made here itself. We could have just directly done it with here, but still we initialized it so that we can connect our repository directly with our VS Code. Right, so I went here, I go to initialize repository, and this is the repository that we are initializing. So I'll type init because it's my initial commit. I'll just type init. I press OK. So now it says no stage because there is no stage till now. So it says I do not have a username and user email right now because we just installed it. We haven't added any username or user profile. So let me just add that. Okay, that won't take a time. I'm opening a terminal. Let me go to. I don't think you can see the code. So yeah, so the only code you will be requiring is very simple. That is remote login. Since we already initialized it, you do not need. But whenever you're opening this code, you always get shortcuts. How we get the basic functionality of how to connect a repository with a VS Code. You can just search it whenever you want. I'll just type it till then. We just need to initialize our username and that thing. Let me give username now. So git config, you can find it how you need to connect your username with GitHub. Okay. Now I'll global.name. Most of you might have already known if you have started CLI based GitHub directly. And if you do not know, you can just find it. It's very, very simple. I'll just type my name. This is my GitHub username, okay? So that I can connect. I think I found an error. Okay, sorry. It is not global name. It is dash global and then username. Yeah, I got a username and then in get config global email. So email I need to type. Sorry, user.email. So let me type in my email. I wrote my email, so both of them are connected. Now I can go here. Commit stage changes. So now when it comes to publishing the changes, so I'll click publish changes. So now it will ask me to log in. So I just added a username and that thing, right? So now I need to enter my password. So for entering a password, let me get my password here. Yes, so I'll just authorize. This is a simple way where you authorize. So this is just one-time setup. Okay, if you do not know it once, you'll be able to do it later on as well. Just open it. Now I already authorized because I already logged in here, right? So since we are already logged in here, I could have easily logged in from here. So now I got repository. So it says publish to a private repository VS Code. All right. So this is the guessing game that I made here. This is creating a repository directly. But what I can also do is I can remote. Remote means where I can route my things. Let me tell what remote means exactly. So remote, sorry. So git add remote. So git add remote means which repository I want my from my own self. So I want to add in this repository. So I'll just go to here code. I'll take a link from HTTP clone. I'll click here. I'll click here. I'll click OK, and I'll just give some name like origin, for example. Okay, I added this name. Now it will be ask me later. I'll do, and let me change the git path to my main branch. I don't want to go into some other branch. So right now the branch, if you can see here, the branch is master, right? So let me change the branch to main branch. Get branch dash to main branch. Right now my branch is changed. Right, I can see my change. This is the button where I need to click on how to publish changes. So I'll click here. Now they are saying me to do a token verification. I just need to sign in once. Okay, okay, I'm getting some error. So what I can do, I can push it from here itself. So let's add. Let me add the origin here. So git push dash u to origin and main. Okay, I'm getting an error here. But there is some issue. What I can do, let me remove this code. These are all minor issues that you might face, but don't worry. You just try to Google it. If you find Google it, right? So you start Googling it, you get all the easy codes there itself. So let me just git init on the folder. I just initiated it, and let me get like add readme file as well as we added there, readme.md. Then let me just commit it for the first time. Git. Okay, this is fine. Yeah, run me. Yeah, now git commit. Let me just give a name. Initial commit. Okay, now this is done. Now I'll do moving on to main branch. Git branch main. Yeah, I mean the main branch. Now I'll be pushing the code directly. So git remote add origin. So what is my origin? My origin is this thing. Go here, click here, paste it here. I'll press enter. All right, I added it. Now I'll do git push origin main. So now this will start uploading my files. Okay, so I'm getting some error here. Okay, I think I'm getting error because I have reinitialized already. Let me just check it once. Yeah, let me just delete this repository for once. This is a common error. For easing this out, since the session is getting very long, let me just add it directly here. This I'll go to upload file. Sorry, I'll go to add file. I'll go to upload files. Now choose a file. I have a file already on my desktop. I'll go here. I'll click in index. I'll upload this file. I'll initial commit. I'll just wrote a change. I click on commit changes. Okay. So right now it is uploaded. So what I was trying to do from VS Code was I was trying to link my VS Code. It is already linked, but there is some error with pull request. So that you guys can ignore as of now. I could have fixed it, but I think there's some issue right now. Before pushing again, there is the git pull is something that it cannot fetch what is already in that thing, and it cannot send the file there. So that is the issue we're facing here. But we do not, since we are just uploading one file, that won't be an issue. We can do it from here directly. And now this is the part we have done. So another way we can do, as I said you, that we are hosting a site, right? So we can go to GitHub pages here directly. Click here. Now we can click on main branch and click on save. So this is one way. So now I'm getting a website directly here. What is this website? Site not found. We need to wait for 2 to 3 minutes. Let's wait for that moment. And once the site is being loaded, I'll just you'll just know how you can use it directly. And before that, now since we are towards the end, let this load for 1 or 2 minutes. Yeah, so yeah, it's already loaded. So yeah, so I have a link already. I click the link. I click on start. I have the game. I click on 10. Our game is ready, and our static page is also ready, and it's on GitHub. So I have the page hosted in GitHub directly, and I have the link. I can send this link to the WhatsApp group. You guys can check it out. So this is our game finally prepared. You guys can use it. You can play it now, and it's on GitHub, so you don't need to worry wherever it is backed up. All right. So this is the game that we're thinking about, and now let's move on to quickly PPTs. So let me just stop this sharing. Let me go on to a different share. Taskbar, yes, this one. And Windows. 1 second. I hope you guys can see it now. 1 second. Okay, yeah. Let's finish the remaining slides that we have. So the next one would be downloading VS Code. I hope everyone downloaded with the process that we did. Next one was how to connect. I told you how to connect that easily. You can look into Google directly and you can find it out. And next, yeah, these are basic resources. So whenever you're learning about HTML, you go to W3 Schools. That is a good source. Or you could go to Free Code Camp, where you can find tutorials on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript directly. Also, you can, if you're thinking about course, like few of them asked for course, try to get a free course. And if you're not getting, just try to get it from YouTube. Start learning from YouTube directly, and then later on you can look into these things directly. And this is one of the good course that I did learn in the process. So you can look into this code as well. Next, let's talk about any doubts if you guys have. So you guys can start with some of your doubts if you have now.
Does JavaScript support object-oriented programming?
No, it is not. It is not an object-oriented language, so it does not do that.
Okay, so I was using Node MCU for some automation project that I was making. So can we use JavaScript to automate it or something like that?
For that specific topic, wait 1 second, okay? Just let me. 9.
Like how the site work, like on the back end, taking information from the
Yes,
user.
I
processing
did
it.
remember your query. It was in the Excel sheet as well. I did research on. Let me check. Let me see if I. Actually, I could not found. Yeah, as I remember, I did not found exactly how we are using it on HTML. But once you are displaying, if you have a source of display, you can link it with an import file. I'm not sure on how we do that exactly. Even if you search it, we do not get something that we have done actually, because since even I was not familiar with using some hardware directly with a website. So there is a way in the first link. Let me check if I can just quickly see that. How to connect. You need to go to Node.js. Yes, you can use that. JavaScript is a language. There are other frameworks that you need to use. Node.js is a backend part of using JavaScript that has inbuilt function. I guess there is a button thing that you can communicate with Node.js and connect it with ESP8266, right? I think you asked about that. So that you can connect from there, from the development board. So what you can do, search about, I think I found a link. Yeah, go to this site. Maybe this might be helpful, how they are doing exactly. Check into this once, how they're showing a method. They're using Node.js and how they're getting the output from.
I'm make the sites and control the lighting for one hardware piece. But I'm trying to make a connection using different pieces and taking input from the user, like what is his ID or something like that, and then using the web page for multiple hardware uh, processors. So how to take the
That
input from the user
that
Java?
is a bit out of. Okay, how to take input. Input thing is done by forms that I told. I didn't exactly show you what sort of forms. Okay, so one form that I showed you, right? About that vaccination form. So that is one way you can use a post request and you get the value. So this is also a form, right? So you get a form, you have a submit button. So this is a form. You take inputs from generally in these pages. So there's a post request and a get request thing in JavaScript. Once you in forms, and when you do that, then you link it with the backend part of thing. So it does not work in front end. So we just discuss about front end, but if you go into PHP and Node, then you'll get on how you get that values and how you can interpret those values. So that is apart from this. I mean the server side. That comes into the server side programming and not the client side one.
So Java basically help us to change the HTML code and CSS code while we're using it, and it
Yeah.
won't help us in any other backend work.
No, it does help. For example, if I'm connecting with a PHP file, PHP is a backend, right? So PHP is a backend if you connect with a database. So if you're connecting with a database and we input a value, what request we are getting with JavaScript. For example, I wrote this form, right? You don't write hello. So I do not. Let me have a form validation thing. Let me show you that. Yeah. So this is one of the code, right? So for example, you are filling a code. So I wrote 1, 2, 3, and I wrote enter. So yes. Where is that code? I cannot find the exact file. Let me check. Yeah, it's here. It's here. Yeah, I found it. Yeah. So this one, when you go, sorry about this. So if I'm typing here ABC, so this is being accepted, right? But if I'm finding 1, 2, 3, I cannot enter it because it's saying red, and I cannot enter it because I'm not matching the pattern. So when you are filling the form, you need to check if the file is right or wrong, right? And as I showed you the development from the backend part, that is one another part. But Node.js is a language. It can be used in the backend using other frameworks. And we have front-end frameworks like React and Angular, and we have backend using Node. So this became both front-end and backend.
Actually, I've just learned HTML and CSS, and I'm going towards Java. So
No, this is completely okay. Java language or JavaScript language?
JavaScript in overall, I guess.
Okay, that is fine. So you should start with the front end, understand how things are being worked, then you can start with backend thing. You just the thing that I taught, since front end part is only that vast. So once you understand the basics, you can go with React and other stuff, learning those things as well.
Okay.
Let me
Thank you.
quickly send you. You guys cannot see the chat box, right? So let me send you the feedback form. Don't forget to fill it.
Yes,
Will
Sushant,
be
you can send the good.
this is the code. I'm sharing it to the WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
And since some of you left, so I'll be keeping it open till it's 9:15. So I'll be keeping it till 11. So whoever fills that will be eligible for getting digital certificates from MLSA directly. And moving on to the PPT. So if you have any other doubts, we have the WhatsApp group there itself. Another thing, if you want to connect with me, you guys can quickly take a screenshot, maybe scan the code, and you guys can talk to me in LinkedIn or Instagram. And feel free to approach me for any of this help. Since I am learning this JavaScript on my own, so that this is the things that I quickly learned and I had to implement this. So this is not something that I came to know out of the box. It was a part of my course, so I understood it. And I tried to explain you the things that I found unique and things that are not found generally on internet. Or it is found, but you might not be getting that exact information when you just Google search it. So a feedback form is in the WhatsApp group. I hope you guys can see the form. Just fill it out quickly. And if you have some doubts, just ask, or you can ask it on WhatsApp group as well.
And also, Sushant, before leaving, you can save the recording. Okay, stop the recording.
Yeah, I'll stop the recording now. Let me check if someone has doubt, then I'll stop the recording and then we'll just wind up. Do you guys have any questions? Anyone? Okay, I think we do not have much doubts. Let me stop the recording.
Yeah.
Before that, thank you for guys joining. I hope you learned something that I could have added from my personal level, something that is unique in a way, but everything is found on the internet. If you just need to give a bit of time and some patience to learn anything new, and I believe you can do that. And saying that, thank you for joining and have a good night. And in case you have further doubts, you can just approach me on any of the social media or the WhatsApp group directly. Thank you for joining.